My name is Janet Rutledge. I'm the MLA for Burnaby North, and I'm the event MC. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge, with respect, the history, customs, and culture of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, on whose traditional territory we meet. I'd also like to introduce our guest speakers. Wilson Williams, elected councillor and spokesperson for the Squamish Nation. Gabriel George, Director of the Treaty, Lands and Resource Department, Tsleil-Waututh Nation. Premier John Horgan. Adrian Dix, Minister of Health. Christy James, Burnaby Hospital Foundation CEO. And Dr. Sarah Osler, Site Medical Director, Burnaby Hospital. And I know that we have other dignitaries here as well, and I will, I don't have my glasses on, so I'm sure others will acknowledge those of you that are here. I'd like to begin our program by asking Wilson Williams, elected councillor and spokesperson for the Squamish Nation, to say a few words.
Thank you, Janet. Hot squall Tanoyup, Yuan Hothan Squallowin, Chin Quinman Tomiup, Swachten Queen Quishamain, Skohopmishochomeoch. I'd like to begin by thanking our ancestors, our old people, for the strength to bring us to today. I have good feelings in my heart that I bring to you from the Squamish Nation and our Indigenous communities. I acknowledged our connections to the land. It's an honor for me to share a bit of our Skohopmish Nachum, our Squamish language with you, out of respect and unity. I'd like to acknowledge the invitation to be here, the inclusion. We literally just shoveled some dirt in the back to get the work started on phase 1 to the extension and expansion of the Burnaby Hospital. I just wanted to share the good feelings as well, that through the spirit of reconciliation, DRIPA, not only that, the unity that is being created as a community, as we're invited into the spaces of this important work. It's not only the Burnaby Hospital that is being rebuilt. We're at a crossroads in British Columbia where the need for rebuilding hospitals across BC is paramount to the health and wellness and caretaking of all our communities. I'd just like to acknowledge the work from the Premier, John Horgan, Adrian Dixon, the delegates here that have warmly welcomed myself this morning, but more importantly, our Indigenous communities through the doors, and thanking and holding my hands up to all of you for the equality of the path we now stretch forward and make our community stronger and our caretaking throughout British Columbia to another level. We need to provide the space that is required. The hospitals are the most vulnerable places any people walk into, and they're the most important. We take care of the buildings to be able to take care of our people, our community, and British Columbia, and our Indigenous communities. Chin Quinman Tomiup, Yuan Hothan Squallowin, Osiam. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilson, for those very inspiring words. And now that I've found my glasses, I've also found some other people that I'd like to introduce. I know the Mayor Hurley is here, and as are a number of his city councillors. I see James Wang, I see Pietro Calandino, I see Minister Katrina Chen, I see Councillor Joe Keefley, Councillors Sav Dhaliwal, and Alison Gu. So thank you for joining us. It is now my pleasure to welcome Gabriel George, Director of the Treaty, Lands and Resources Department, Tsleil-Waututh Nation, to speak. Gabriel?
Itza Puelio, Nikwans, Meestuch, Schwalawanat, Tsleil-Waututh, Huelmuch. I hope you're all having a good day, and I bring good feelings from the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. It's a pleasure to be part of this and to be, as Wilson has expressed, to be included as part of the Indigenous peoples of this land. We were the Tsleil-Waututh people. We're Hunkaminam we're Hunkaminam speaking peoples, and we have suffered many things under colonization. And one of the tools that was used against us was the medical industry, hospitals. And so today it's a healing for me to be here with my brother from the Squamish Nation, and I also acknowledge my relatives from the Musqueam, Humathqueam Ot, Misteo from the Musqueam Nation as well, because it's such a different world that we live in now. And for us to be included in this and to be a part of this is a healing. In our language, we say Yachwithit is to heal. And so again, bringing good feelings from my Tsleil-Waututh Nation and from our leadership.
Thank you, Gabriel, for those wonderful words and for reminding us what this event today means to your people. At this time, I would like to invite Premier John Horgan to come forward for the gift presentation. Thank you, Wilson Williams and Gabriel George, for your presence and wisdom shared with us today. In Coast Salish territory, blankets have a deeply woven history and cultural significance of honor and protection. On behalf of the provincial government, Haichika. Thank you. And it's now my honor to welcome Adrian Dix, Minister of Health, for today's big announcement.
There you go. Thank you, Janet. I think I'm going to change the order today. I'm going to say Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam Nation. It's an honor to be here on your territories today, today for this event. It's a big day in Burnaby, and I want to acknowledge from the beginning members of the Fraser Health Board. Our chair, Jim Sinclair, is here. Board members Inderjeet Hundal and Ramya Hozik are here. I also want to especially express my appreciation to both the people of Burnaby and the representatives of the city of Burnaby, who have been so much part of this project, made such a big difference in allowing it to happen and to proceed, and whose leadership of this community has, and their own investment in public services is such an important part of the community. So Councillor Mayor Hurley, of course, Councillor Calandino, Councillor Keithley, and everyone else who is here, Councillor Wang, everyone else who is here, Councillor Dhaliwal, and everyone, I want to express my special appreciation to all of you. I want to, of course, acknowledge our donors, and very distinguished donor is here today, who's part of healthcare projects across BC, and in particular here in Burnaby and at St. Paul's right now. Mr. Jim Pattison is here. I want to acknowledge Mr. Pattison. And of course, as much as acknowledged, thank Mr. Patterson for his incredible contribution to this and so many other health projects. Thank you so much. This is a place of healing, and you're going to hear from Dr. Osler, but the first group I want to really acknowledge are the people who work here. Members of the Hospital Employees Union. Hi, Betty. What's up, Betty, over there? Members of the Health Sciences Association, of the BC Nurses Union, of the Doctors of BC. We see out front and every day members of QP Local 873, the Ambulance Paramedics of BC. This has been, this period, one of the most challenging periods in the history of healthcare in BC, and no less at this place. And I think it's to the credit, the enormous credit of Dr. Osler and everyone else who works here, the improvements in the quality of care that have taken place in a pandemic. As people know, there was a fire here at Burnaby Hospital, and staff responded with courage and professionalism to that. There was significant challenges with COVID-19 outbreaks, and our whole team responded with courage and generosity to that. This facility was built, of course, the one that we're placing today is built in the 1950s and has provided extraordinary service, and it needs to be replaced because it needs to be replaced. And I come here all the time because my constituents are just the other side of Boundary Road and are served by this hospital too. And I can tell you that the staff here, there may be multi-bed rooms, there'll be fewer. But the staff here is second to none, and the spirit and generosity they have shown in the pandemic is exceptional, and I want to express my gratitude to all of them today. It's estimated by 2036 we're going to see a 50% increase in inpatients here at Burnaby Hospital, a 30% increase in emergency department visits by 2036, and it's why we're here today, to say that construction work is now underway on the hospital's redevelopment. And that this includes, and you saw that earlier, the 6-story, 83-bed Keith and Betty Beattie Pavilion. And we want to thank the Beattie family for their contribution. It will house a maternity unit and a neonatal intensive care unit, which is vitally important for new parents and families. The pavilion will also have a new inpatient mental health and substance use unit and an inpatient medical unit. And this development also features the new Jim Pattison Surgery Center and renovations to the existing support facilities building. Work will include a bigger emergency department featuring more treatment bays. And there will be also be new operating rooms. I just talked to a surgeon who had performed since Friday 16 orthopedic surgeries, if you can imagine that, but featuring more treatment bays and post-operative recovery spaces. We expect this development to be completed in 2025. And this is this first phase of the development will be completed in 2025. But of course, it's only part of this major hospital redevelopment project in Surrey, including a second patient care tower and a cancer treatment center, which is currently in the business planning stage. I have to say, we are going to go, and it's going to be a transformational. We'll go in the first phase from 265 to 289 beds, and the second phase to 399 beds. It's like a hospital and a half in terms of increase, a 50% increase in the number of beds, and it reflects our commitment to ensuring that the best healthcare workers in the world, workers who have given it their all, who have been 100% all in for us, have the best facilities in the world in acute care to perform what they do. And so in this region, that means a new St. Paul's Hospital, which people have been waiting for a long, 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 long time. A major development at Richmond Hospital, a major development at Royal Columbian Hospital, as you know, a second hospital in Surrey, and all of the other projects. The new project at Lions Gate Hospital, and all of the projects around BC, including Peace Arch, including Langley, including Eagle Ridge, including Abbotsford, that have been put in place in the last number of years. Our healthcare workers deserve this, and they deserve a Burnaby Hospital that is here for the next generation and the generation after that, providing health care and providing the best possible conditions for people to heal and get better and to live sometimes the most difficult moments of our lives, our last moments, but to get the kind of care that they need and deserve in this community. I am very proud of this project, proud of Fraser Health, and proud of our government for proceeding after a long, long wait for a project that needed to happen a long time ago and is happening now. It's being built now. I'm proud of that. I want to thank you all for being here today. I'm going to hand it back to you, Jim.
Thank you, Minister. I know people in Burnaby are thrilled to see this work begin. This is very big news, and we will be watching, our community will be watching as the construction work rolls out. Of course, we wouldn't be where we are today without the leadership on this project from Fraser Health and the contributions of the Burnaby Hospital Foundation. Foundations do so much hard work to help our healthcare facilities. Please welcome Christy James, Burnaby Hospital Foundation CEO.
Thank you, Janet. I'm honored to be here today to celebrate this important milestone in the redevelopment of Burnaby Hospital. Thank you to the BC provincial government for this massive life-changing investment into the future of Burnaby, East Vancouver, and surrounding communities. Burnaby Hospital Foundation is a proud partner in this redevelopment with a $30 million commitment towards Phase 1 of the project. To raise these funds, the Foundation launched our ambitious Proud History, Bright Future fundraising campaign just over 2 years ago. I want to take a moment to thank our Foundation's Board of Directors, as well as our fundraising cabinet, which is chaired by Bill McCarthy, who's here with us today. Thank you for stepping up during this campaign, which is the largest in our Foundation's history. When we launched the campaign, the Foundation knew that we had to rely heavily on the generosity of our community to help us raise the funds needed to support this project, and our community responded in a big way. Our donors have recognized the necessity and urgency for an upgraded hospital, which has encouraged so many people to contribute towards the campaign. To date, we've raised over $24 million towards the transformation of our hospital into a modern healthcare campus, and we are still going strong. Just a few weeks ago, we announced a $5 million matching gift from Jim Pattison. Thank you, Jimmy, for being here today. His gift joins an $8 million gift from Mrs. Betty Beattie that launched our campaign in March of 2020. Today, to help us celebrate this occasion, we're pleased to have some of our other impactful donors present. I'd like to thank the City of Burnaby for their commitment of a $5 million gift towards the bright future of our city. Joining us today, I'm not sure if the mayor's still here, but some of our councillors who have been mentioned, Sav, James, Pietro, Joe, Allison, thank you so much. I also want to extend thanks to Bill McCarthy, who not only chairs our fundraising cabinet, but also contributed a personal gift of $1 million towards the redevelopment campaign. I want to share my gratitude for Alexander College and Ken Shinazaki, who have also both contributed a gift of $1 million, but are unfortunately unable to join us today. To our philanthropic leaders, we could not have reached this point without you. Your generous support helps change the lives of so many people in our community. In addition, over 10,000 other gifts have been contributed to the campaign so far. Each of these gifts is another strong endorsement from our community recognizing the importance of an upgraded and expanded hospital. I'm confident that with Jim's matching gift and our other community leaders inspiring them, thousands more will donate to the redevelopment of Burnaby Hospital. Burnaby Hospital has been at the heart of this community for 70 years, supporting the health and vibrancy of all generations. The way our donors have stepped up these past 2 years to support the future of healthcare in our community is an inspiration. This much-needed transformation will enable Burnaby Hospital to provide modern healthcare close to home from now into the future.
Thank you, Christy. And I also want to thank all of your team and donors for their heartfelt donations. Of course, hospitals are more than just bricks and drywall. They are about people. They are about the dedicated healthcare workers who are tireless in providing care to those in need. And with that in mind, I see Barb Netterpaul, the president of HEU, who represents so many of the people who take care of us. With all of this in mind, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sarah Ostler, Medical Director of Burnaby Hospital.
Good morning, and thank you, Janet, for the introduction. What a special day it is today. The shovel is in the ground and the dirt is moving, so it's fantastic. And I was lucky to have the opportunity to go down to the site, and we were given work boots, and I've kept mine on because I think they're so reflective of what's going on, all the work that has happened and that has to happen in the future, and they're really comfortable. So thank you for the boots. Right. I am honored to be here. This is an important milestone for Burnaby Hospital and our community. But before I talk about the future, I must acknowledge the past. Over the last several years, I've started to learn and understand our true Canadian history. To all Indigenous people listening today, I promise to continue to learn, understand, and change for the better. The redevelopment of Burnaby Hospital will incorporate all of our learnings from the past. This redevelopment project will make a huge difference in the lives of Burnaby residents and those in the Lower Mainland as we develop a campus of care that will support our communities now and for many years in the future. Burnaby is growing and evolving, and our health services need to also grow and evolve. As we look to the future, we need to continue to find ways to deliver healthcare services differently to ensure we provide people with the healthcare they need when they need it. As site medical director for Burnaby Hospital and a frontline physician, I know from a first-hand perspective the huge impact the new Burnaby Hospital will make for patients, clients, and their families, and the families we serve, as well as our staff and our medical staff. This new campus of care is being designed with our patients and the hospital community in mind, which means we will deliver services that are agile as technology changes and sustainable as our community grows and evolves. The future of healthcare includes spaces that are modern, comfortable, and purpose-built, and Burnaby Hospital will be no exception. These spaces will be better for our patients and will assist our care teams in reaching their vision, delivering exceptional, individualized, culturally sensitive, timely care. The COVID-19 pandemic has taught us a lot, and we've applied what we've learned throughout the pandemic to the design of the new hospital, which will have medical units with outbreak control zones that will help protect our patients and staff. In addition, the majority of the rooms in the new hospital will be single patients, so patients can receive the care they need with greater privacy and comfort. Our neonatal intensive care unit will also be single rooms to support best infection control practices for our littlest patients. Operating rooms will be bigger and equipped with new technology that will enhance the care we deliver. And I know the orthopedic surgeons are going to be thrilled about that. At the end of the redevelopment, our hospital will look very different and will be the backdrop for our staff and medical staff to provide a quality care experience for all patients and their families, helping support better health outcomes. At this time, I would like to thank the provincial government, the City of Burnaby, and the Burnaby Hospital Foundation for all your work and support in bringing this exciting project to life. I know there are a lot of projects on the go and a lot of work is involved, and I might be a little biased, but I think this is the best one. I would like to extend my deep appreciation to the many patient advisors, Indigenous partners, healthcare teams, and Burnaby Hospital staff and medical staff that are actively involved in the planning process. Their expertise and input they provide is invaluable to inform what is needed for the future of Burnaby Hospital. Finally, I would like to acknowledge and thank our patients and their families who are at the heart of what we do. As we strive to provide exceptional medical care, the quality of care that we are proud of and would want our loved ones to receive. I look forward to what I see as a very bright future ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Osler. And you remind me that my granddaughter was one of your littlest patients at one time. It's our hope that you and your colleagues will enjoy working in a modern environment. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Premier John Horgan to speak and to wrap up this event. Premier.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, everyone. It's great to be back in Burnaby. To Mayor Hurley and council representatives who are here, thank you for your steadfast focus on this project, election after election, year after year. I'm reminded as we stand here today on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, how Gabriel and Wilson have reminded us that we are all now connected to the land, the territory that they've been on since time immemorial. But many of the rest of us have come from other places. Me, the son of an Irish immigrant, and many others like Jim Pattison, who came from the birthplace of public health care in Canada, from Saskatchewan, where I was just visiting with Western premiers, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But we are all connected now to the land, and of course everyone who works in this facility has been waiting for many, many months and years to get to a place where, as Dr. Ulster said, we could throw some dirt into the air. I'm still wearing I brought my own work boots, and I still got them on because there is still more work to do, as Sarah reminds us. But it is extraordinary to be at a place where not just government participation, not just those who work inside the facility, care aides, nurses, doctors, Health Sciences Association, all of those that make these institutions hum for the people in this region, but those who come also to give a hand on their own time. We heard about the extraordinary contribution of the Beattie family, and I lift my hands to them and thank them for their focus and commitment to Burnaby, and of course to Jim Pattison, who tirelessly gives of himself to not just our healthcare facilities, but to other very, very worthy causes right across British Columbia. But the Hospital Foundation is made up of 10,000 donors, as Christy told us. One of them who's here today, he comes here several days a week to volunteer at the front door. And he had given once already $100,000 when he knew we were having a press conference. Mohinder Parmar, who's standing right over there, said, how about another $100,000? And that's the type of commitment. That's the type of commitment from the community that's represented in this announcement today. $612 million for phase one sounds like a massive amount of money, and it is. But if we do not invest in our future today, it will be more challenging than the today we're already having. We have touched upon the impacts of a global pandemic. We're all still feeling that, and we are not out of the woods yet. But as I travel around British Columbia and I talk to people, they're grateful to the healthcare providers who went into the breach when we were all fearful for our own well-being and the well-being of our families and our communities. Healthcare providers showed up day in and day out, sometimes for double shifts. And I had my own personal journey through the public healthcare system, from primary care to diagnostic to surgery to post-op to treatment, and then out the other side. And I met countless people who I could see by the lines on their face were experiencing extreme stress, not just from the work they did every day, but going home to their families, not knowing if they were bringing with them COVID-19. So although 2.5 years have gone by and we're all feeling a little bit better about it, I think we should reflect on that journey and remember, as we think back on the past 2.5 years, about the people in this facility that Adrian pointed out who stepped up and did the work of heroes, and they'll continue to do the work of heroes, but in the future it will be in a state-of-the-art facility that is up to their worthiness, and also to, of course, the people in Burnaby. Now, we have been talking about this facility for a long, long time. I recall coming here when I became leader of the BC NDP. Then MLA Kathy Horgan brought me here, and we went through the facility, and I talked to healthcare workers, I talked to patients, and it was abundantly clear to me that we needed to kickstart the process that had been going on for what seemed like an eternity. You can't provide health care in a stack of press releases. You can only provide health care in a state-of-the-art facility that is populated by professionals, skilled, trained professionals, whose first priority each and every day is the wellness of British Columbians. I'm fiercely proud of what we've been able to accomplish over the past number of years, and Burnaby reflects that, I believe, better than any other of the challenges that we've had to deal with in the past 5 years. We've had fires, we've had floods, we've had heat domes, atmospheric rivers, global pandemic, but through all of that, here in Burnaby, there's been resolve from the council, resolve from the community, and resolve from the providers of healthcare that we would come out of this better and stronger than ever before. To Dr. Ulster, to Christy and the entire foundation, I look forward to the work ahead. I look forward to the opening of this upgraded facility, providing health care for the fastest growing region outside of the fastest growing region in the Vancouver catchment area. Is that the? I'm looking at Adrian for an update on that. He's giving me a sort of a head nod, so scratch that one. He'll get the detail for you later. But it's working together, a team focused on outcomes that's going to be what British Columbians expect of us each and every day, and that's what we intend to deliver. Heisco, CM, thank you for coming, and I look forward to talking to people. And again, to Mohinder, thank you for your generosity, and not so much in the contribution of the $100,000, but coming here every day to help out, to greet people at the door and get them started on the right way. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you.
We're going to take questions now. We have media on site and we have media on the phone line.
I don't recall. Oh, I'm sorry. It's just
okay.
warming up.
I would ask media on the phone line to please press star 1 to enter the queue. You are all limited to 1 question and 1 follow-up. We are going to start on the phone this morning.
Okay.
Richard Zussman, Global News.
Premier, I'd like to ask you about, you're announcing this new facility here. Minister Dix mentioned a number of other facilities, but the province is chronically understaffed when it comes to healthcare facilities. We're seeing some facilities in Port McNeill and Clearwater having to close down emergency rooms because of a lack of staffing. How will you ensure these facilities are properly staffed when you don't even have staff in the province available to keep together and keep running the current facilities?
Thank you for the question. It's a very good one. I know British Columbians are perplexed and concerned when we have closures of emergency rooms for brief periods of time because of staff shortages. That's a direct result of appropriate responses to a global pandemic. We are seeing shortages not just in our healthcare sectors, but right across the economy. You name it, hospitality, construction, any sector you can imagine is experiencing shortages. 100,000 people came to British Columbia last year from other parts of Canada and around the world. And so we need to build more houses, we need to build more schools, more hospitals, and we also need to ensure that we're putting in place the training programs to meet the needs of a growing population and a dynamic economy. And that's why I want to come back to my comments about Jim Pattison coming from Saskatchewan, the birthplace of public health care in Canada. We met as premiers in Regina, the Western premiers, and we'll be meeting in Victoria later this summer, all of the premiers across the country. And the single most important issue to every premier, wherever they come from, is a thing called the Canada Health Transfer. Now, when I say that, I can almost hear eyes glazing over. Sounds like an accounting exercise. It's about provinces asking the federal government for money. That's never happened in Canada before. I appreciate that that doesn't sound like news. But we have seen a decline in federal participation in the delivery of public health care services over the past 30 years. And I believe, and my colleagues believe, that now is the time to reimagine public health care in Canada for the next century. And that involves making sure that our facilities are state-of-the-art. Our technologies have got us to a place, I've just experienced it, where the most dire of diagnoses can lead to a positive outcome. We need to have more of that all across the province. And we need to ensure that we can recruit and retain skilled workers to work in these state-of-the-art facilities. That involves making sure that we can address compensation, we can right across the system, not just in primary care, not just in acute care and long-term care, but right across the piece. Adrian will tell you how many, almost 30,000 healthcare providers have been hired over the past number of years, and we're still not keeping pace. We've got an aging population, people are retiring, and we need to ensure that we're training the next generation coming forward. We're putting in place the building blocks. We need an infusion of cash, not just here in BC, but across the country from our federal partner, and we'll start to see this issue shift to a place where we want it to be, and that is where healthcare workers can be confident that when they come to work, there'll be someone to replace them at the end of the shift. I can't tell you the number of times I saw, particularly with nurses in the post-op, working 2 shifts because their replacement wasn't able to come in because they had COVID-19. That will shift as time goes by, but we still need to make sure we're revitalizing the workforce, and that's our commitment.
Richard, do you have a follow-up?
There are a number of British Columbians legitimately worried that they won't be able to get the health care they need because of these staffing shortages. What do you say to people in terms of concerns? And you talk about training the next generation. You promised in the last election a new medical school. I know it takes time, but we haven't seen any real progress in terms of getting students through that program. So what are you actually doing to speed up getting more people on the front lines?
Well, we have created more spaces, and we are in the process of finalizing business plans, which are critically important to the public understand that we're doing the due diligence to ensure that we're not wasting precious public dollars. We spent a number of years getting to the point where we are today here in Burnaby, and that's the state of play with respect to a new medical school, a new school for healthcare workers, which is in the works, and we'll have more to say about that in the future. But what the public doesn't want us to do is in a knee-jerk way respond before we're ready to do so. We have brought in eased restrictions on workers from offshore who can come here, nurses in particular. I'll get Adrian to give you the details on that, Richard. But what my message to British Columbians is, the system is vibrant, but the system is teetering, and we need to support it. We need to support the workers, not just as governments, but as citizens and patients. We need to make sure that all of us come into our acute care systems and get the outcomes that we all want to see, and that includes making sure that the workers feel that there's the level of gratitude that I know we all feel is demonstrated each and every day. Families, patients, everyone all wants to see positive outcomes. So do we, and we need to focus on that together. And I'll let Adrian answer the questions on how we're getting more nurses and other issues like that.
Thank you, Premier. And just to say on nursing spaces, we're adding in this budget 602 new nursing spaces. That British Columbia, since the Premier became Premier, has led the country in growth of registered nursing positions. That we added 30,000 new healthcare workers net. In other words, we went from 180,000 to 210,000 during a pandemic. And that includes the 6,500 people that have come in as committed to the Premier over 3 years. It was going to be 7,000. We're almost there. And we're going to meet that test in long-term care. For example, the creation of the HCAP program that leads to more healthcare assistance. We'll have announcements soon with respect to health sciences professionals. And we've added residency positions for doctors, 60 resident physicians, that gives us the biggest family residency program in Canada. These are significant improvements. And yes, during a pandemic, when we see a very significant increase in the number of people off sick, and this has been particularly true in the last few months, and it's why the kind of changes that you talked about in your question happen, and it's the system responding to an increase in people being away sick because of COVID-19. And in the Interior Health Authority, for example, that number over a year was 25% more days. 25% more days over a year. But in the short run, during this Omicron period, for example, last week it was 16,000 across the province, and the highest levels being in Interior Health and Northern Health. So when that happens, we respond and we triage. But what else happened last week? One of the largest numbers of surgeries ever done in the BC healthcare system. I'm so proud of the people working in that system and the work they do, and I know that the people of BC are.
Next question is from Binder Sachin, CTV.
Hi there, Premier. Just wanted to follow up on what Richard was asking there. Can you kind of connect the dots in terms of if the provinces are successful in getting an increase in health transfers from the federal government, how does that translate into, fully staffed hospitals, better access to family doctors at a time when all over the province we are seeing a shortage of skilled workers?
Well, first of all, secure, stable, predictable funding allows decision makers in our health authorities, allows decision makers in the Ministry of Health, and of course in the Ministry of Finance in terms of managing where do we make investments? Do we make them because the federal government decided to drop a pile of money for a one-time only project that's of interest on a given day? You can't build a system around that. You need predictability, you need funding. Any business will tell you that if the revenues are not stable, you're going to have to make different choices about how you deliver your services or meet the needs of your customers, and in the case of healthcare, your patients. So this is not, and again, I want to reinforce this for those who are watching at home, this is not just a BC problem. It's a national problem in every sector. We have an aging population, and we're not, our immigration plans are robust, and they too have complications built into them. We need to ensure, as 100,000 people come to British Columbia, that we're building the housing they will need, providing spaces in our schools and in our child care facilities, as well as making sure that our healthcare system can manage those that will fall ill over time or upon arrival. So there's no magic solution. I don't want anyone to be under an illusion that the Canada Health Transfer will transform over the course of a weekend our healthcare system. But we need a new vision, and I know Canadians support universal access to public health care. Now we need all governments to understand and recognize that they need to work together. And this is a good example of people working together, community through the foundation, the Fraser Health Authority, making sure that they're engaging with staff to better understand what the facility will need to look like to recruit and retain more skilled workers to deliver services. And that collaboration, I know most Canadians would say, well, surely to goodness you get up every day with the view of collaborating. And what I take away from my time through my cancer journey is that Minister Dix and I would suggest the councillors here from City of Burnaby are involved in a confrontational business. You may see that on question period later on in the day. But in the healthcare system, it's collaboration from the time you arrive until you leave. And it's inspiring. And I think British Columbians and Canadians want to see that type of collaboration that is the foundation of our healthcare network happening in all orders of government. We've seen it with the province and the city with respect to this new facility, and we need to see it with the federal government and provinces so that we can have stable funding, we can build out our post-secondary institutions to train the next generation of workers, and they will have somewhere to go. They're certainly going to have patients.
Binder, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, and Premier, we've heard this call from you, I think, almost in every press conference in the last little while, for sure. How confident are you that the Prime Minister is willing to have this discussion and put up the funding that you're asking for? As the head of the Council of the Federation, do you think you will be able to deliver some sort of change to the way that those health transfers are provided?
Well, I'm always optimistic, Binder, but I will say that the past month or so have been challenging. Obviously, the aggressive war of violence in Ukraine perpetuated by the dictator in Russia has had a profound impact on Canada and the world, and the federal government has been focused on that, and I don't fault that for 1 second. I have engaged with the Health Minister and the Minister of Intergovernmental Relations, myself, the Premier of Saskatchewan and the Premier of Newfoundland have been in bilateral or multilateral discussions at that level, but we need the Finance Minister at the table. The Prime Minister and I, every time I see him, I talk about this. He was here in Vancouver, in British Columbia, to acknowledge the 215 grave sites on Tk'emlúps and Secwépemc territory. I had a chance to talk to him about it then. He was here a few weeks before that. I talked to him again. Every time I see him, I talk to him. I know that he understands the importance of this, but I don't know if he and his team understand how important it is to get started. The more we wait, the more difficult the challenge becomes. The sooner we can make decisions based on stable funding, the sooner we can start building out all of the issues that have been canvassed in the first three questions here today and beyond.
Next question is from Katie DeRosa, Vancouver Sun.
Hi, Premier. When announcing, the money for the museum, the government has consistently said it's not an either-or. We can spend on hospitals and we can also have a new museum. But your government has not announced new funding for the new medical school at Simon Fraser University, which was promised in the election campaign. So where is the funding for that? And could that not produce the new doctors that we need to staff these hospitals?
I think I said in an earlier question, you may want to go back and review the tape, but I did say that we've been working on this particular issue for the past 5 years, and there was a stack of press releases as a foundation to build on when we arrived. The commitment to new training spaces for healthcare workers was made just a few years ago. The first call for action on the museum was in 2006. Again in 2011, you've seen the business plan. I just reject the notion that we should say not this but something else. We're doing all of those things. We're seismically upgrading schools that had been languishing for a period of time. We're building upgrades to this hospital and new hospitals around the province, new schools, new bridges, new public transit, and 1% of the most ambitious capital budget in BC history is dedicated to protecting and preserving our collective heritage. I'm comfortable with that. And I think British Columbians will be as we talk this through. But we do not pay healthcare workers from our capital budgets. We use that as a homeowners would to replace the roof when there's a hole in it, or maybe update the kitchen, add a new bedroom. Those are capital investments. You borrow the money for that and you pay it off over time. Operating dollars is what we need from Ottawa so that we can make definite decisions on how many staff we bring in, how many staff we train, and how we deploy them. So they're two completely different things. And I just reject the notion that we should suspend protecting our collective heritage. The first thing that the first government of British Columbia did was not to establish, back in 1886, was not to establish a Ministry of Transportation, not to establish a Ministry of Health. They established the BC Museum because even in the 1880s, people had the good sense to understand that we need to protect and preserve those things that are important to us today and into the future so that we can ensure that generations to come understand the successes and the failures we've had in British Columbia over the past 150 years. I'm unapologetic about that, and I regret that, that you feel differently.
Katie, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, this is for Minister Dix. The UBC study has said that BC has the highest in Canada excess deaths during the pandemic. Can you speak to this? Does this mean that our success in managing unforeseen or perhaps connected deaths to COVID-19, that BC is doing worse than other provinces, or how do you read these numbers?
I think if you look at the numbers, they're pretty clear that we have the lowest mortality rate due to COVID-19 of any equivalent jurisdiction in North America. We have had, as people will know, also significant changes in our other public health emergency, the overdose public health emergency that's especially affected young people. You can make an argument that by extension COVID-19 had an effect on that, and undoubtedly it did. But I think overall, the response in British Columbia at every level has been the best in Canada. And that doesn't mean other jurisdictions haven't done very well as well. I think collectively in Canada, the provincial governments and the federal governments, municipal governments came together to bring changes and working with the people of this province that had a profound effect in having us get through the pandemic. So there are always going to be discussions about the impact of on public health of different emergencies we're facing. But in BC, the facts are just the facts, and the mortality rate from COVID-19 was the lowest here of any jurisdiction of its size in North America. There are about 29 jurisdictions in North America over 5 million. We had the lowest mortality rates, and we still do today. But there are other issues, of course, facing people in British Columbia, and you sometimes see that reflected in these numbers. But that doesn't mean that the COVID-19 response wasn't excellent here, because quite clearly it was.
Next question is from Lisa Eusda, City News.
Sorry about that. Premier, you said, that the money from the federal government is what would help consistency over time, and that we need a new vision. So if you get that extra percentage, and I don't know if this is you or Minister Dix actually, but what will be the priority? So you get that money, is it first going to go to increasing doctor salaries, so that more doctors stay in family medicine? Is it going to be bringing in new nurses? Like, you must have a plan in place of where that money will go, and I'm wondering what those priorities are.
Well, we're planning, assuming that we don't get the money, which is what, again, families would do as well in our circumstance. We are making changes. Minister Dix and I met with doctors of BC. The Deputy Minister of Health is engaging with them now on a range of issues. We're in collective bargaining in all sectors, all public sector workers. Contracts are expiring, and those negotiations are underway. So we're making priorities every day, as British Columbians would expect us to do. What we have been saying to the federal government, 13 10 provinces and 3 territories for the 5 years that I have been at that table. And I'm now the senior person at the table. So there are many people have come and gone in that time. And despite the transition in membership, the number one issue, it remains the same: healthcare, and more healthcare, because provinces deliver these services. It's our jurisdictional responsibility. But the federal government is responsible for the Canada Health Act, and historically had been a roughly 50-50 partner going back to the 1960s. And this didn't happen yesterday. It's been happening over time. And our appeal to the federal government and to the Prime Minister is that we need to address that, and we need to do it as quickly as we can. Every province has different priorities, and that's the other key challenge here. I hear and I recognize and acknowledge the federal government wants to ensure there's accountability for significant infusions of federal money, which I'll remind you comes from provinces. There are Canadians, and they live in a whole bunch of different places, and they pay taxes. Some of it to the jurisdiction they live in, and some of it to Ottawa. But at the end of the day, there is one taxpayer. The challenge is, how does the taxpayer want that money spent? And I would bet you the vast majority want it spent on healthcare. So that's our message to Ottawa. The priorities and how we will manage that when it arrives, we'll tell you when it arrives. But we're dealing, and Minister Dix and his team are dealing with the world that we live in and hoping for a better one down the road.
Follow up, Lisa?
I'm wondering if, and this may be Minister Dix again, I'm not sure who this calls to, but how do you quantify, or can you quantify, or how have you quantified the cost of not having family doctors or primary care doctors for people who put off getting, medications or whatnot because it's just so hard to get to someone? I'm wondering if you have a dollar number on that, or how you work that out.
I'd say a couple of things about that. In April of 2020, March and April of 2020, we were faced with a fundamental decision. The COVID-19 pandemic had been declared in BC and had been declared worldwide, as had the public health emergency that is COVID-19 that's still in place. And so we made changes over basically 48 hours, working with the doctors of BC, that were some of the most fundamental changes ever made to primary care in BC. We had to. It was an emergency. People couldn't go in to their doctor's offices or other primary care places where they get primary care. They couldn't go in. And so we went from just under 18 million in-person visits in 1 year to 5 million in-person visits in 1 year. It's why UPCCs were so important in that time, because they allowed for in-person visits, and in fact have allowed for an additional 1.3 million in-person visits. There is no question you will not find a family practice doctor or a patient, and they frequently talk to me, who doesn't say that this was both necessary. We actually went from 18 million visits to 19.5 million visits in 2 years in a pandemic, but that the quality of care one gets either by a phone visit or a virtual visit is different than an in-person visit. And that's why it's a challenge when you frequently hear people unable to get an in-person visit. It's frequently people who are attached to a family practice doctor in those circumstances. And I want to say I'm very proud of how our family physicians, our nurse practitioners, our nurses in community, and others responded to this. So how do we deal with it? Well, we deal with it by dealing with both the retention issues, the current business model issues of family practice, and recruiting younger doctors who are reluctant and have been reluctant in recent years to go into longitudinal family practice. How do we deal with it? We deal with it by building out team-based care in this primary care network in Burnaby, 32 full-time additional staff to support the existing clinics to provide better care. And everyone knows the work that family practice doctors have done in Burnaby, particularly around COVID testing and vaccination that was in place for a long time at Central Park. So I think that there is no question that good primary care it allows you to navigate more easily through the healthcare system. And when you're attached in a longitudinal way to family care, it makes a big difference, family practice. It's why we've given it such priority, and it's got such priority now. So the short answer is it's extremely important, and that's why we're taking action.
We are going to take some questions on site here. If you could please identify yourself and your outlet, that would be great.
Susie De Silva with CBC. Just going back to the closure, sorry, I think you might not be able to hear me. Going back to the issue of the closures, you mentioned, extreme absences lately that they've been going on for months. You also talk about long-term plans in terms of retention, bringing in new people. But for people in these small communities whose ER were closed this weekend, and they're looking this week in the next couple of days at the possibility that their ER will be closed when they need it, what are you doing right now? Is there anything you can do right now to help solve this situation, or do they have to accept the reality that their ERs may be closed?
Well, you saw what we did in the past number of weekends with respect to the challenges at Royal Inland Hospital. But yes, when you have fewer staff people and they're affected by, for example, someone who's sick from COVID-19 or for some other reason, that has an impact on healthcare services where it might only be a small handful of people working there. It has a profound effect. And so our obligation in those circumstances to make sure people are safe. And so to direct people where they can be safe and where the care can be delivered. So that's what happens. But the extent of the investment in new nurses, in new resident positions, in new health sciences professionals, the 30,000 people we've added to the healthcare system, but that's not just acute care, that's long-term care, that's primary care, that's everything, is significant. And we have to continue to do that. But you do have to, in a system with so many places where we're open 365, 24/7, you do have to make adjustments at times to deal with that. And so we've added extraordinarily in terms of staff, but in interior health in particular, where a lot of these problems are faced, what we see is, and what we've seen for months and months and months, after the heat dome and after the fires and after the floods, and with COVID-19 throughout and the public health emergency that's the overdose crisis, it has had an effect on people away. And so when that happens, you have to make adjustments, either by pulling people in or moving people around. That's why the public health system works well in those circumstances. But it's a challenge. So the actions, recruiting more people, and constantly ensuring there's a high level of care. There was, for example, a shutdown over a couple of days because absence has been called in one maternity ward in interior health at Royal Inland Hospital, and those adjustments are the ones that are made to keep people safe. And we're going to continue to make those adjustments where we need to. But the investment in ensuring we have the healthcare workers in the future, 30,000 net in a pandemic is an extraordinary achievement, and we obviously have to do more.
In a similar vein, you talk about family doctors, you talk about meeting with the family doctors recently, and again, it's a lot of long-term plans. There are some doctors who say, we've got some quick solutions for things that can help fix things right now. Is there anything, can you give a timeline for people instead of sort of long-term, big picture? What changes may be coming and when that could potentially actually improve the situation on a day-to-day basis for people?
Well, first of all, yes, if there's short-term changes that can be made, we'll be making short-term changes. And there's, I think, if you want to talk about family practice doctors, there's 3 sets of things we have to do. We have to continue to build out team-based care, which has the support of doctors around BC. And you see more than 1,000 new FTEs supporting primary care. That had never happened before. There was an announcement in 2010 that they built integrated primary care networks essentially in communities around BC. They said they'd do 160 of them by 2015. You know how many they completed? 0. You can't beat that record. Actually, it's impossible. You can tie it, but you can't beat it. What we've done is built out 59 primary care networks, more than 1,000 incremental staff, 27 urgent and primary care centers on a base of 2,000 primary care clinics. So that's a small but important contribution as well to that effort. And we got to continue to act to ensure that new resident doctors see longitudinal primary care as a career. And I think that what they tell us and what they tell us is that the current business model for primary care doesn't work for them. So we have to make adjustments to that because we need to replace the doctors who are retiring. We have in BC about 400 family practice doctors, not all of them practicing in that sense. Some of them are doing different things in the system, but 400 over 70. So we have the largest family practice residency program in the country, but we have to make sure that they're not just becoming hospitalists or other things, but that they're going into longitudinal family practice, and that will involve some changes. So yeah, we're looking at the immediate and we're looking at the long term.
Last question today is from Singtao.
Hello. Yeah, for the last year, summer, more than 500 patients have been died from the higher temperatures. How about this year? Because the last year the hospital was very busy and the patient have been called the ambulance and called the 911, but it's not working. How about this year? Thank you.
Well, certainly there's a number of issues there that you've touched upon, and we've been working on all of them. I believe, and I'm sure British Columbians expect, that we will meet these challenges as they emerge. Some are predictable, some are not. The heat dome, for example, last summer was something that none of us had ever experienced, anything remotely like that. The atmospheric river that watched our infrastructure disappear over the course of a few rainy days. Now, we've all seen rain. We live in British Columbia, but nothing like that. So governments and communities and people respond to crises and circumstances as best they can. The good news is that we are now building out a system that used to prepare for a once-in-a-100-year event. Now we're seeing that those once-in-a-100-year events are happening more frequently. And that means we have to be better prepared with our infrastructure. That's why new and modern facilities here in the Lower Mainland, but also in Dawson Creek, Fort St. James, Terrace, out the Fraser Valley, all of these initiatives are designed to make sure that there's capacity. But in order to fill that, we need to encourage people to get into public health care. And the challenge there is, there's a whole bunch of other things going on. We have fewer people than we have jobs available, not just in healthcare, but in every single sector. That means our immigration policies have to be transformed, another issue that the Prime Minister and I have been engaged on. But first and foremost, we need to ensure that we can build out a system that's predictable, and you do that by having stable funding.
That's all the questions we have today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.